Hi, everyone. Reverend Ed Bove here. Um, I've gotten such great feedback from people wanting for me to do more book reviews. I love reading. I developed actually the love of reading as uh, in actually the real love of reading in my graduate studies in seminary. Before that, a lot of my reading in undergraduate and just in my personal life was on a technical basis. I was always reading books to get skills to do things. And I was reading books for information. In seminary, I learned how to read books for transformation, books that really spoke to the situations in our world, books that spoke to our history as people and as humanity, books that spoke about very worthwhile causes and issues around justice and equality, around ending racism and hunger. So I had a professor, Dr. Brian Stone, in seminary, and I took 5 consecutive classes with Dr. Stone. I really enjoyed his teaching. But every week we would read a book, and every Monday we would have a quiz. And that was just part of the way he ran his classes. But the biggest thing I took from Dr. Stone's teachings was to dialogue with an author. You can read an author on any subject. You don't have to take what they say as gospel truth. You don't have to believe everything they're saying. You can write in the margins, I don't agree with that, or I do agree with that. Or you can write in the margins, follow up with this idea, or follow up with that idea. You can even write down words that you want to explore the full meaning of, or concepts. So it's reading for transformational purposes, and to grow deeper as people, grow deeper as readers, grow deeper in our faith. Today, I would like to share with you this book by Tammy Bottner, Dr. Tammy Bottner, and it's Among the Reeds. Among the Reeds, the true story of how a family survived the Holocaust. Okay, this is another real tough read. An interesting thing was that I went to high school with Dr. Bottner, and I discovered when I had children, when I went to a new pediatrician, that she had become a pediatrician, and she was a pediatrician to my children for a little while. But this story is a real journey by Dr. Bottner into her own family's history. And her family were survivors of the Holocaust, and her father survived, and the book centers around his story. But let me read this to you. This is in the prologue. My grandparents were Holocaust survivors. My father, too, was a survivor. He had lived through World War II as a young child in Europe. Despite the thousands of miles and more than 50 years of time separating my family's traumatic wartime experiences from that of Ari's birth, I found myself reliving the trauma. It was deeply troubling and very strange. She goes on to say, talking about her father, as he got older, my dad spoke more openly about his World War II experiences. Once he retired, he spent about a decade giving regular talks to high school students about the Holocaust and about his story in particular. He felt, I think, that he was honoring the memories of those who were lost by giving these talks. Eventually, though, he too realized that the memories exacted a price. He found he was having nightmares and flashbacks after these lectures, and so he stopped. But he wanted to tell his story. He thought about writing it down, but he's an engineer. His skills are more analytical than verbal, and while his English is excellent still, it is not his first language. The task seemed daunting. He spoke to me about hiring a ghostwriter. I started thinking that maybe I would do it. The more I considered it, the more I realized that I very much wanted to research what had happened and to put it together into a book. I felt very drawn to the tale. The story was mine as much as anyone's. In this book, we are confronted with the horrors of World War II and Nazi Germany. We are confronted to the attempt at extinguishing a people. We are confronted with the horrors that that ideology brought upon so many Jews in the Holocaust. This story touches us in such a deeply emotional place. What I really drew from this book was the fact that we have ancestral DNA or epigenetics. We have this DNA within us where we, even though we might be removed by decades from our family's trauma, we can still carry that trauma in our lives, our modern lives. Dr. Bottner speaks of when she brought her son home and she actually experienced post-traumatic stress, worrying intensely about his safety, wondering if someone would burst through the door and take him. And she confronts that reality in this as she defined that and named it. And then her journey begins. She interviewed family members. She interviewed and heard the stories that could have been lost if it wasn't for her searching and documenting the story. And what impressed me about this book is it's not about a concept. It's not about an issue. It's not just a book that generally talks about race or violence. It is a story that is intimately connected to the author's family experience and her personal experience. I hope that you pick this book up and read it again among the reads by Dr. Tammy Bottner. You will be enriched by reading this. And I invite you to share the stories of your family with each other. Don't allow that knowledge to be lost to time. Interview aunts, uncles, fathers, grandfathers, the people in your family. Talk to them about where they grew up, how they grew up, what were the experiences. What were your experiences of the Depression? What were your experiences of World War I or World War II or Vietnam? Or what was your experience in the Civil Rights Movement? What was your experience as you watched women in the fight for women's rights and the right to vote? What were challenges that you see? Because in that searching, in that hearing of stories, you may identify more about yourself and why you react at certain emotional or physical levels to various traumas or stresses. You may, even in your own story, identify ancestral DNA, if you will, that you carry with you, and prior to this searching, you were unaware. So it's definitely, Dr. Bottner really brings up a wonderful way that we can learn more about ourselves and our families. So thank you for listening today. I wish you good reading, and I will be bringing you more book reviews in the future. But for today, thank you so much for being with me, and I'll talk to you soon.